Have you ever felt tired from explaining yourself again and again, as if every small action needed a reason, a defense, or a gentle apology? Maybe you've replayed conversations in your mind, wondering if you sounded wrong, or if someone misunderstood your heart. It's exhausting, isn't it, carrying the weight of proving your intentions to people who never truly see you? Sometimes it feels like your voice becomes smaller each time you try to justify your worth. But what if silence could be your strength? What if true confidence didn't come from explaining, but from standing quietly in who you already are? I want to share a story about a man named Arin. He once lived in that space before boundaries where every word felt fragile and every step needed permission. Yet, something happened to him that changed how he saw explanations forever. His story might just shift something inside you too, because you don't owe the world constant explanations, only honesty with yourself. Arin was the kind of person who stepped softly through life, always careful not to trouble anyone. He spoke gently, moved gently, and tried to make the world around him a little easier for others. One morning at work, he brushed past the table and a pen rolled to the floor. He apologized 3 times before picking it up, even though no one was bothered. Inside, a quiet fear whispered that any small mistake made him less worthy, less acceptable, less safe. He worried constantly about disappointing people, even strangers who barely noticed him. His heart carried a constant question. Is it okay for me to exist without explaining everything? He didn't see his own worth yet, and every apology felt like another piece of himself fading away. But Arin didn't know this habit would soon cost him something important. His life was already bending under a weight he never understood. Arin's days were stitched together with explanations. At work, when he spoke up in meetings, he'd quickly add, if that's okay. I'm not saying it's the best idea. When a coworker misunderstood his tone, he spent the rest of the afternoon trying to clarify what he meant, even though they had already moved on. With friends, he apologized for being too quiet, then apologized again for talking too much when he tried to join the conversation. Even small moments with strangers, like taking a little longer at the checkout, made him rush into excuses he didn't need to give. But the heaviest explanations were the ones he whispered to himself at night. He replayed hours of conversations, trying to justify his intentions to a world that wasn't even listening. Why do I justify everything? He wondered. The fear inside him answered before he could breathe. Because if you don't, they won't understand you. Or accept you. His identity was shaped more by fear than by truth, and he felt it draining him, little by little. He didn't know how to stop. And then, a single moment pushed him to his limit. One afternoon at work, a small error appeared in a report about a missing attachment in an email. Arin hadn't even handled that task, but his name was mentioned near it, and before he understood what was happening, the blame slid quietly onto his shoulders. He tried to explain, gently at first, then with increasing desperation, that he hadn't been the one who sent the file. But every time he opened his mouth, someone cut him off, too busy to listen, too certain of their assumptions. He repeated himself again and again, hoping clarity would save him, but his words fell flat against closed minds. Finally, a coworker sighed and said, "Why are you defending yourself so much? It makes you look guilty." That sentence hit him harder than any accusation. In that moment, he felt something collapse inside his hope, his voice, his fragile sense of worth. He realized he could explain for hours and still not be seen. He felt invisible, standing in plain sight yet unheard. When the day ended, Arin walked home with his heart trembling, carrying a silence heavier than any apology. That night, something unexpected happened. It was quiet, but it started to change everything for him. When Arin reached his apartment building, his steps were slow, as if even the air around him felt heavy. Outside the entrance sat Mr. Revin, his elderly neighbor who often tended to the small potted plants by the stairs. He looked up, studying Arin's exhausted eyes with quiet concern. "Long day?" he asked softly. Arin tried to smile, but it wavered. Revin waited a moment, then said, "Tell me, who made you believe you must explain your soul to everyone?" The question loosened something inside Arin. He sat beside the old man, the evening light settling gently around them. Words he had held back for years began to spill about how he apologized for everything, how people misunderstood him, how speaking felt like walking on thin ice. Revan listened without interrupting, his presence steady and calm. Then, with a knowing look, he shared a lesson Arin would never forget. Revan leaned back slightly, his eyes resting on the fading sky. "Arin," he began, "have you ever watched a river?" Arin nodded, unsure where this was going. Revan continued, his voice slow and steady. "A river flows without apology. It does not stop to convince the stones why it moves the way it does. It doesn't explain its bends or justify its pace. It simply moves because moving is its nature." Arin listened, wondering what this had to do with him. Revan's gaze softened. "People who explain themselves constantly are not weak," he said. "They're wounded. Somewhere in their past, someone taught them that their truth wasn't enough, that their worth had to be proven before it could be accepted." Arin felt those words settle deep inside him. Revan went on, "But healing begins the moment you stop performing for approval. You don't need to pause your life to convince every stone along your path. Your direction is still yours, even if others don't understand it." The image of the river stayed with Arin, the quiet, confident flow, untouched by judgment. For the first time, he wondered what it would feel like to move through life with that same quiet certainty. The next morning, Arin carried Revan's river metaphor with him like a small light in his pocket. When a coworker questioned why he hadn't replied to a message yet, his instinct was to rush into explanations, but something inside him paused. Instead of justifying every detail, he simply said, "I'll handle it shortly," and let the silence stand. No apology, no overthinking, just calm clarity. At first, it felt unfamiliar, almost uncomfortable, as if he had stepped into a new version of himself. But beneath that discomfort was something gentler, a quiet peace he hadn't felt in years, a steady whisper of growing confidence. Over the next few days, Arin felt something shifting inside him. He began speaking once instead of repeating himself, trusting that his words were enough the first time. When he entered rooms, he no longer apologized for taking up space. He stood a little straighter, breathed a little deeper, and noticed how the world didn't fall apart when he stopped explaining every move he made. What once felt like fear slowly softened into grounded confidence. A quiet strength rose within him, steady and warm, reminding him that he was allowed to exist without justification. He was learning to flow like the river. Maybe you've lived like Arin, explaining yourself until your voice felt small and your heart felt tired. But you don't have to keep giving pieces of your worth away. Over-explaining slowly drains the strength inside you, and the people who truly understand you will never require long explanations to believe your intentions. Sometimes silence is not distance, it is dignity. Sometimes clarity is not loud, it is steady. Your truth doesn't need permission, proof, or performance. You are allowed to move through life with quiet confidence, just like the river. And your worth remains whole, even when you say less. If this story touched something quiet inside you, share it with someone who also carries this weight. Let them know they're not alone, and their worth is still whole. May you walk with gentleness toward yourself, and may confidence rise in you like calm water finding its way. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.